What's happening, guys? The Comics Kid 2099 here, and I want to talk to you about a book that I finished reading yesterday. Fear Agent, Volume 5, I Against I. This is, of course, the 5th volume of Fear Agent, and Volume 4, I wasn't hugely feeling that volume. That was one that I felt like was kind of a dip in quality compared to the previous stories. And I can't say that any of the problems that I had with Volume 4 have actually been resolved while reading Volume 5. Having said that, I didn't hate this volume as much as I did Volume 4. And it's not even that I hated Volume 4, but I feel like I enjoyed this volume a little bit more than I did Volume 4. But like I said, all of the problems that I had with this series that I was really beginning to feel like were very present with Volume 4, I feel like those are still present here. For example, I mentioned in my review of Volume 4 that this series has a problem with making the stakes feel like they actually matter. At no point in this series do I ever feel like Heath Huston, the main character, is actually in danger. And sure, when you're reading a series, for example, when you're reading Batman or Superman, you know in your heart of hearts that that character is not going to actually die this time. Or if they do, like in the death of Superman, then you know that they are going to come back. It's not that I feel like Heath Huston should die. It's not like I even think that he should die in any given story here. But I feel like if you're going to make me think that he's going to die, I need to feel like there's actually a chance of it happening. There's this tightrope that I feel like every writer needs to walk. You need to make me feel like the character is actually in danger while also not actually putting the character in danger, if that makes any sense at all. And I feel like Rick Remender, he's not putting the character in danger. There have been like 5 times in this series where he's made us think that something really bad is about to happen to Heath, and then he kind of pulls out of it. And Heath even mentions that in this book. He says that surviving and coming out of these really bad situations isn't a problem, but the life that he has after the fact is usually the problem. And you know, poking fun at the fact that Heath Huston never dies, that might be enjoyable if I was someone else, but I'm not enjoying it because, like I said at the end of my Volume 4 review, we could probably see him be sliced into 1,000 pieces, and then in the very next issue, he would somehow survive that. At the very end of Volume 4, he and this other fear agent, they are sucked into a black hole, and we see them become old men. Very beginning of this volume, that's completely ignored. He's the same age that he always was, and everything's fine. I don't understand. I don't even think that Rick Remender understands. I feel like at this point, he's just trying to pull our legs. He's trying to say, look, I'm doing this thing. And then the next issue, he doesn't do the thing. And he's been doing this ever since Volume 1, when at the very end of Volume 1, we see that he has been shot and he's falling into the ocean, and he is very clearly dying. That's something that he's been doing this entire time, and I was okay with it in the beginning because I felt like he was using the tropes of science fiction to his advantage. Okay, if this dude gets shot and it's a fatal wound, then these jellyfish monsters can just clone his body and put his brain into this new body. I felt like that was something that worked. I feel like being sucked into a black hole, turning into an old man, and then suddenly you're not an old man, I don't think that works as well. And I'm not even entirely sure where getting sucked into the black hole landed Heath and this other fear agent. In fact, this whole book is a little fuzzy on that. They're on some world, and this is some spoilers for this volume, but it turns out there is another Heath Huston from an alternate reality who is also on this world. And he is kind of the leader of this band of criminals, thugs, if you will, and basically there's this little town that is very pious, very religious, and Heath has managed to find his way into this town, and the alternate Heath Huston is looking for our Heath Huston. And at first I thought, okay, this is somehow going to tie into when Heath went back in time and tried to stop the Totalians thousands of years before they left their planet, and then there was clones of him and Mara at that from that juncture in time, because we were told that the whatever the organization that fixes problems with time travel, we were told that they eliminated that alternate reality, and we saw that they did. I don't know if that's necessarily true, because we are also told in this book that the Totalians have infiltrated that organization and are controlling time travel. So for all we know, they could have resurrected that reality, if you will, for their own purposes. I don't know. But from what we see here, the evil Heath Houston in this book, he is not from that reality where Heath was able to, or attempted to destroy all the Tatalians at their conception. He is not from that reality. He's from some other reality, because he is telling Char, the evil Heath Houston is telling Char a little bit about how he got where he is now, and basically his history is very different from the history that we see from our Heath Houston. Basically, his point of reference, if you will, kind of diverges sometime in the middle of Volume 1, and the things that he's telling Char did not happen to our Heath Houston. And so I'm just assuming that this is a completely unrelated Heath Houston who comes from a completely, up until now, never seen dimension, and I'm fine with that. But at first I was thinking, okay, this is going to tie in with the events of Volume 1. And I think it would have made more sense if it had tied in with the events of Volume 1. I think this would have been more interesting, maybe, if this was the original Heath Houston's body that was somehow reanimated after the jellyfish monsters took his brain and gave it to a clone body. I think that would have been interesting, and it would have made the events of the first 2 volumes seem a little bit more like they mattered. And if you'll recall, way back when I was reviewing Volumes 1 and 2, I said basically the events of the first 1.5 volumes kind of didn't happen at all thanks to that organization that fixed the timeline, but I still was okay with those events being rendered moot because those events informed the characters of Mara and Heath. But I still think it would have been nice if, here we are 5 volumes later, if we could have been calling back to that stuff that happened in Volume 1. They didn't do that, not really, and I'm okay with that. It's not a problem, but I think it could have been nice if they had done that. This book does start to take Heath Houston down a little bit less of a self-destructive path. We've seen that he is very much just, in any way he can, trying to just destroy himself, largely because of him committing genocide against the Dressites. And here we see that he's now sober. He's starting to work on making his life a little bit better. We also find out that he has cancer. And if I'm not mistaken, this has come from this drug that he was taking a couple of volumes ago that he got hooked on. I'm pretty sure that is what led to this. Either that or the jellyfish monsters gave him a faulty body. I'm not really clear on that. At one point he blames them for not doing a good job giving him his replacement body, so I'm not really sure why he has cancer. It's one or the other, either that drug that he was taking or the jellyfish monsters. So he very clearly seems to think that he is on a very short lifespan and that he doesn't have long to make it right with his ex-wife/wife and his daughter. And I really like that he's finally starting to make changes in his life, because up until now I was starting to think, boy, Rick Remender is really a very bleak individual if this is how he views life. If Heath Houston is any indication of how Rick Remender sees life, then he is a really dark-minded fellow. And of course I shouldn't fall into the trap of thinking that a character mirrors the creator, although sometimes that's true, sometimes it's not. But I'm glad that Remender is finally starting to take this character into a slightly more positive direction. Now, once again, like all the volumes of this series, this volume ends on a cliffhanger. I won't get into that. I'll probably get into that next volume. But we are very clearly starting to see who the actual big menace of this series is going to be. I think I mentioned in one of my previous reviews that I had no idea if it was going to be the Tatalians or if it was going to be the Dressites. They both seemed neck and neck as being equally evil. Well, now we kind of have a very clear idea, okay, this species is going to be the big villain of the series, and this species here, not so much. I don't necessarily buy the way that it happens here. It's been seeded a couple of volumes back, but I still don't buy the way it's happening here. I still don't think that it actually works here, but I don't really have to talk about that. I feel like I've been rambling for a little bit anyway. So this volume, like I said, it doesn't actually fix any of the problems that I had with Volume 4, but at the same time, I think I like this volume a little bit more than I did Volume 4. Maybe just because Volume 4 is when I was starting to really notice the problems that I was having with this series. And maybe this is a series that would work better if I was reading it all just back to back to back. Instead of reading roughly 1 volume a week, if I was reading them a little closer together, maybe it would work a little better. I'm not sure. Or maybe it would work better now that I've read the series, or I've almost read all of the series, if I went back and reread it, maybe I wouldn't have as many problems with it. I'm not really sure. But so far, the series has kind of it's gone up a little bit more from Volume 4, but it still hasn't quite picked up where I was enjoying it so much for the first 3 volumes. So those are my thoughts on Fear Agent, I Against I. I hope that you guys liked this review. If you did, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And I will be back next week to talk about another volume of Fear Agent. It's actually going to be Tales of the Fear Agent. So we'll be holding off Volume 6 for a couple of weeks, and I will be talking about Tales of the Fear Agent next week. So I hope that you guys will look forward to that, and I hope that you guys will come back and watch some other videos that I have throughout the rest of this week and next week. So in the meantime, I will see you guys later. Have a great rest of the day.